we have a president and a federal government that says that they are going to get rid of LGBTQ discrimination based on sexual identity or orientation. How can you want more than that?
I'm just excited to have a president coming in that's actually looking to do work.
That's right. And COVID, what he did on COVID today.
I mean, even just at the beginning of it all, like sort of like the whole inauguration, the speech the day before, I was like, complete sentences. Oh my God.
Yes, that's right.
It was
Not a single huge
coherency is amazing.
No superlatives.
Right.
I'm at the Lincoln Memorial on the National Mall in our nation's secured capital city. In the last few weeks, in the last few years, we've witnessed deep divisions and a troubling rancor in our land. But tonight, we ponder the United States of America, the practice of our democracy, the foundations of our republic, the integrity of our Constitution, the hope and dreams we all share for a more perfect union.
Well, good evening, LGBTQ world, and what a few days we have witnessed. It is 7 p.m. Thursday, January 21st, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
The world's first live daily queer evening news show, Out of the Closet and Into the Headlines on Q News Tonight.
Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is a live, unedited LGBTQ evening news show. So whatever happens, you're going to see it. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our world. First up, please welcome our anchors at Queer News Tonight. First, let's welcome anchor David Hopkins. He is well known here in the LGBTQ South Florida as an officer for Lambda Men's Brotherhood, a nonprofit organization focused on building a legacy of gay philanthropy with the mission to identify and help fund critical needs in our community. Through social and fundraising events since 2005, they have raised and donated over $175,000 in grants to local and national nonprofit organizations that serve vital needs in our community. Good evening, David.
Hey, good evening, everybody. And if you want to help us raise funds, join us Valentine's Day as we have our Lambda's Love In-a-thon stream, sponsored by It's Happening Out Television Network, which Queer News Tonight's part of, as well as Underground Wilma, which is a Twitch stream featuring local DJs from here in Wilton Manors.
Great. Well, next, let's welcome anchor Orlando Gonzalez. He is the executive director for SAVE, Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, one of America's most important LGBTQ civil rights organizations and recognized as South Florida's longest-serving organization dedicated to protecting people who are LGBTQ against discrimination. Good evening, Orlando.
Good evening, Al and David. It's great to be with you all.
All right, so tonight we are going to begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, January 21st. First, we queer up breaking Q news, and it's a big one. Biden takes over and immediately signs LGBTQ executive order. Democrat Joe Biden, the new president of the United States, was sworn in yesterday as the next president of the United States, ushering in a much improved political climate for LGBTQ people and most would say the entire nation. In one of his very first acts in office Wednesday, President Joe Biden signed an executive order called Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender Identity or Sexual Orientation. The Biden LGBTQ executive order builds on the U.S. Supreme Court's decision last June that holds that Title VII of the Federal Civil Rights Act protects employees from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. A press release on then President-elect's website before inauguration did not elaborate on what build means, but said the executive order, quote, will also direct agencies to take all lawful steps to make sure that federal anti-discrimination statutes that cover sex discrimination prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, protecting the rights of LGBTQ plus persons, end quote. The staggering and sweeping executive order will be used to implement anti-LGBTQ discrimination policies in all facets of Americans' lives. The news was stunning to many LGBTQ activists. The White House, in a statement, said, quote, all persons should receive equal treatment under the law, no matter their sexual identity or sexual orientation, end quote, says the statement. The Biden-Harris administration will prevent and combat discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation.
This is very important. As recently as Sunday, the Trump administration was trying to put pressure on the State Department to limit the ruling from the Supreme Court. So Biden is putting an immediate stop to that, which is such a great thing to see.
Absolutely. I'm like, pinch me. I can't believe that this is taking place. Up next, I think that we're going to have the Equality Act punted up into the House, into the U.S. Congress, with our lead, Nancy Pelosi, up there really pushing for this to go through. It was passed last year, but the Senate, with Mitch McConnell in the leadership position, just sat on it and didn't do anything. But I think that this may be the year that we will see a tremendous advancement for our community.
You know, I have to take a highlighter and highlight Orlando Gonzalez, the director of SAVE, one of our most important advocacy LGBT groups, says basically exactly what everyone in America is saying that are in the field to protect our rights. Wow.
Wow.
That's what you
Absolutely.
just heard. Wow. In terms of, this is in the first minutes of the new president of the United States.
It's monumental. We're a priority.
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic.
And next we have a great new category. It's new to the show, Queer Up Inauguration. In celebrating America, Biden, Harris urged nation to rise together. Watch this.
The pandemic, economic crisis, racial injustice, the climate crisis, and threats to our very democracy. And the question is, are we up to it? Will we meet the moment like our forebears have? I believe we must, and I believe we will. You, the American people, are the reason why. I've never been more optimistic about America than I am this very day. There isn't anything we can't do if we do it together.
President Biden addressed the nation Wednesday night, standing at the feet of the Abraham Lincoln Memorial during a televised and star-studded celebration of the historic inauguration. Biden said, quote, we're good people. Unity forces us to come together in common love that defines us as Americans, end quote. The 46th president urged the public to come together, saying it's the only way we'll get through the darkness around us. The inaugural program, called Celebrating America, featured several tributes to the extraordinary efforts by nurses, doctors, teachers, and other frontline workers who have stepped up throughout the coronavirus pandemic. In her first remarks to the nation as vice president, Kamala Harris echoed the president's call to unite in the days ahead. Harris said, quote, in many ways, this moment embodies our character as a nation. Even in dark times, we not only dream, we do. We shoot for the moon and then we plant our flag on it. We are bold, we are fearless and ambitious. We are undaunted in our belief that we shall overcome, that we will rise up. A great experiment takes great determination. The will to do the work, and then the wisdom to keep refining, keep tinkering, keep perfecting, end quote. Although much of the program hit several somber notes, the 2-hour show was interspersed with several performances by a variety of singers, musicians, artists, and actors. First rating reports indicate that yesterday's inauguration was the most watched presidential inauguration in history.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, one of the things that really stood out to me is that the arts are back, right? We saw music, there was poetry, we saw incredible things that all served to inspire us. It was moving.
4 dark years of 45. That's what it means. 4 dark years. I have to say, I celebrated too much last night with some friends. I did. I celebrated a lot. It is super interesting to me that I cannot remember a single day in my life politically, as it relates to America, being more significant in what I've seen in the last 24 hours in my entire life. And not just in the LGBTQ community, in all kinds of facets that we are seeing in science, in health, in civil rights, in terms of how we communicate, in civility.
Complete sentences.
Complete sentences, exactly. The last 24 hours have been, I think, the most significant day of my entire life in what I've watched in America.
It was so good to see not only intelligent commentary and speeches, but also entertainment. J-Lo's rendition of This Land Is Your Land mixed with America the Beautiful was perfect. This Land Is Your Land is a protest song about inequality in America. Combining it with America the Beautiful made it a beacon of hope, a chance for people to reach that sense of equality. And her adding Let's Get Loud, although people are bashing it, told people, speak up against that inequality, make America the beautiful place it can be.
And the bridge building, right? Garth
Yes.
Brooks, a known Republican, a country singer, where so many times there's this sort of commentary that the Democratic Party isn't reaching that part of the world. Well, here we were, front and center, performed at the inauguration ceremony.
We hit
Amazing.
a bullseye in this observation, because in the first 24 hours, now there are going to be lots of dark, there's going to be lots of difficult times.
Yeah.
But for the first 24 hours, symbols matter, and we've watched amazing symbols.
Well, let's queer up entertainment. Biden's inaugural parade features all-transgender chorus in a historic first. In a presidential inauguration that included so many unique firsts, reflecting the diversity of the new administration in America, one of the great moments was the first trans chorus to ever perform for a president of the United States. The Trans Chorus of Los Angeles issued a statement about its participation in yesterday's virtual inauguration ceremonies for the Biden-Harris administration. Catherine Davis, the organization's executive director, said, quote, "We're honored and grateful to have been included in the inauguration parade. As a part of DJ Cassidy's Pass the Mic, the Trans Chorus of Los Angeles is the premier all-trans chorus in America, with trans feminine, trans masculine, non-binary, gender non-conforming, queer, and intersex members. We share our voices to bring a positive image to the trans community and encourage the movement from victim to victorious for trans people around the world. We were motivated to join today's celebration by our mission and the words of President Biden in his election acceptance speech, where he promised to protect the rights and dignity of all trans people as we move forward in our social development. The Trans Chorus of Los Angeles will continue to be a voice for all members of the trans community in the United States and around the world," end quote. Everyone here at Q News tonight congratulates the administration to include this special performance, and we congratulate the Trans Chorus of Los Angeles.
You know, as I said, and it's, I guess, going to be a theme for us today on January 21st, symbols matter. And after 4 years of rejection, we've talked about this in 2000 and the 2004 presidential cycles, LGBTQ was the wedge issue to try to get Republicans elected, and it worked. The Republicans don't do that anymore. The wedge issue now is trans, and that's what's happened in the last 4 years in the attack on trans. Not LGB, but the T. And so this symbol yesterday and Biden's reversal, we're going to report on the defense secretary's comments. Those symbols matter.
Yeah, the whole Pass the Mic segment and the parade across America itself was such a great celebration of the diversity and the differences of American people and bring us all together in one common goal. We had every age group. You had schools, you had elderly people, you had cultural representations from all across our nation. And it was really amazing, and I'm so happy the administration included the trans choir.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes I'm frustrated and I feel like we're not making progress, and then sometimes we move it at a really rapid clip and very rapid pace. So I welcome all of this. It's such a huge relief.
It's a giant leap forward. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Well, next let's queer up entertainment. Now, we've talked about all of these big stories going on in the world. Here's one of the benefits of Queer News Tonight. Here's who won the Oscars of gay porn for 2021. The GayVNs are back, but this time they are virtual. As the awards season kicks off, organizers are being forced to re-examine what a ceremony might look like with social distancing. This isn't just Hollywood through as the SAG Awards and the Golden Globes kick off every year. So do a slate of other award shows around the adult industry. And within that is gay porn, the Gay Video News Awards. They're also known as the Oscars of gay porn. That event put on its virtual iteration this week. The live stream was hosted by Alec Mappa and Sherry Vine, who awarded winners in some 29 categories. The show kept up its legacy of Trophy Boys, where they have performers that are fairly new to the industry as presenters, with the likes of Damian Ellis, Eli Bennett, Jay Seabrook, Ray Dexter, and Jake Waters. The winners were an interesting and buzzy mix. A Murdered Heart, who we've interviewed about here at the show, Naked Sword won Best Feature. That project included conversion therapy in its plot. Best Fetish Scene went to Tom of Finland. Leather Bar Initiation, which was an installment in Men.com's Tom of Finland series that celebrated 100 years since the birth of the artist. A scene from Raging Stallion's Cake Shop also took home a trophy for Best Three-Way Scene, while that project made headlines for its inclusion of a MAGA hat. I wonder if Donald was in that one. In a tweet, D'Angelo Jackson, Performer of the Year, called out the marked increase in performers of color winning awards this year. The awards also boasted 15 fan categories. Max Connor, Tripp Richards, Teddy Torres, Cade Maddox, and of course, my friend Rocco Steele were a few of the winners.
Yes, as Al mentioned, Mark McNamara, who is the director of A Murdered Heart, has been on It's Happening Out. We've discussed that film. He's a South Florida native, so hey, Mark. Also, connections to South Florida. Jax Thanatos from the Tom of Finland scene used to be a bartender at Georgie's Alibi.
Oh.
More Rocco Steele. He is one of my favorites. But you know,
I wonder why.
You know, one of the things I'll say is that porn to me is like so funny because it feels like it's rapidly produced, so it's always like relevant to current events. So the whole reference to the MAGA hat or the cake or whatnot, there's always sort of this like very timely pieces that are put together. So hats off to the porn industry.
Well, I really have no idea what we're talking about because I've never seen gay porn before. Oh, wait. I've had dinner with Rocco twice, and I think he is a tremendous representation in the community. I've said this before. He's in his mid-50s, which is bucks every trend, and so I love that diversity. And he's an attorney, and I love how smart he is in terms of what he represents. And also, I love doing this story. You know, a lot of my friends will go, Al's done a story on gay porn. I love it because at Queer News Tonight, we talk about all facets of our community. That diversity is super, super.
He's also an entrepreneur, right? He has his own company and his own line.
He has an underwear brand called 10 by 7. Want to try to figure out what that means?
And if you go on Pornhub, there's a whole category based on Al's story research. So next we queer up trans rights. Biden administration enacts simple change, sending a powerful message of trans rights. President Joe Biden will soon reverse the ban on transgender people serving openly in the military, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said in a statement on Wednesday. While the reversal was not one of the 15 actions the new administration announced it would take Wednesday, day one of the Biden presidency, Psaki said it would be among the, quote, additional executive actions that would be taken in the coming days and weeks. Biden had previously vowed to reverse the Trump administration's transgender military policy on day one of his administration. However, his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, is still going through the confirmation process, though it's not known whether this is the reason the reversal is not part of the president's day one agenda. During his Senate hearing Tuesday, Austin, who would be the first black defense secretary if confirmed, said that he supports reversing the ban on trans people from serving openly. Austin said in the hearings, quote, "If you're fit and you're qualified to serve and you can maintain the standards, You should be allowed to serve, and you can expect that I will support that throughout.
Amazing. I mean, really, such an antiquated, outdated type of a ruling that came from the previous administration. But I think that Lloyd's comment says it the best, right? If you're fit and you're qualified, then you're in. And hats off to our troops, because they're the ones who are protecting us. And anybody who's willing to do that, we really should honor them in every way possible.
You know, I'll do my best to not continue to use his name, but 45, 46, flip and flop. And what's interesting about this story is it was not the military that was trying to implement a trans ban and push it through the courts and sustaining it. It was a political decision, a political decision. It had nothing to do with the readiness of our military. And now you're hearing the military say it has nothing to do with the readiness of our military. So it makes perfect and reasonable sense to 100%. Come to this conclusion.
I personally hope he does not issue an executive order overturning that ban. I hope he pushes it through legislature. That way the next president, if they choose to, can't just flip it out again. It needs to be on the books as a law that this ban cannot exist. There needs to be equality in the military.
Yeah. Well, that's our queer headlines for today. There were a lot of big headlines for the LGBTQ community. So next, let's catch up on the LGBTQ news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies. Tonight, we report the devastating effects that coronavirus is having on the American and worldwide LGBTQ community in both total cases and in total deaths. Big news on COVID-19 is at 3 p.m. today, President Biden held a special live television address to the nation on COVID-19. Highlights included the announcement that FEMA will open 100 emergency vaccine locations in all 50 states in the next weeks. He initiated the Defense Production Act to create national emergency for supplies, vaccine support, and more. The president implemented a 100-day mask mandate. While this can only be enforced on federal property, he challenged all governors to follow federal lead now in a federal policy and make mask wearing a mandatory enforcement, and quoted the CDC by saying that this single act, according to the CDC, will save 50,000 people in the next 3 months. Finally, the president called on all Americans to make it their national duty to wear a mask. He challenged citizens to set aside the politics of not wearing a mask. The president then joined the CDC and the National Institute of Health in saying wearing a mask is more important than the vaccine itself because of the mitigation effects that happen immediately with a mask while waiting for vaccine distribution. Finally, he signed 10 executive orders, and as he signed each one, told the live television audience what each pandemic order did. For the first time since January 20, 2020, 1 year ago from the first case of COVID-19, a president of the United States repeated what Queer News Tonight has led on our Quarantine Quickie segment for nearly a year: America's failure. The president said, quote, "America makes up 4% of the world's population, but we make up 25% of the world's COVID cases and 20% of the deaths." Then he repeated the science of those statistics again, with no ignorant link to the amount of testing we have heard in the last year. Today's actions at the White House was day one of a new administration to solve the pandemic for the LGBTQ community. Likely today's steps will be more successful than what we saw in an entire last year of our COVID response.
Yeah, I loved seeing Dr. Fauci in the later press event today at 4 o'clock. It was good to see him back in the spotlight. He took a few jabs at the previous administration's ignoring of his advice. And he repeated, wear a mask, it's the best defense, you know.
This is leadership, right? These were things that were done to improve the quality of our lives. These were not actions taken to harm, to disenfranchise, to take away anything. This is leadership, and it just feels so great. I can't say it enough. And so it's a new day, and I feel really hopeful about where we will be going. He's attacking the virus with a tremendous laser focus, and I'm just so happy. It makes me feel much more at ease in terms of where we're going.
You know, it's interesting, a theme in terms of my voice observation, 45 to 46, flip and then flop. The issue of what we've seen in the last year was all political. It was political. Today, we watched the science. There's no politics. It's just a scientific medical response to get us out of this crisis. It's what we needed on day one. It's why 45 will never be forgiven for where we are in COVID-19.
100%.
Ever.
So that's our COVID-19 news for tonight. Next, we report that Happening Now television networks help support our LGBTQ community. An example is Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from a permanent set in supporting that partnership. The network broadcasts from the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, with more than 30,000 people watching every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. And it's live and in Eastern Time. We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral. It is my queer church. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Athena Dion, drag performer known from performing on South Beach and in Mykonos, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set and this amazing queer church campus possible.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when you're visiting South Florida.
Well, finally, we're going to end tonight's broadcast with the big finish, and that's today's silly or news that entertains the LGBTQ community. First up, in the big finish, retailers drop Mike Lindell. You know, the guy from MyPillow? His products have been dropped as the CEO has been promoting false election claims.
Yeah, I don't want to, call him white supremacist or anything, but I heard he has a new product coming out called MyPillow.
Whenever people say they don't know who he is, I always say it's the guy with the porn stash.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a good porn stash.
You know, I read about him yesterday. I'm sure the product is great. I don't particularly enjoy watching him do it. But it's interesting, when I watch Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, which I do because in the last year it's the best way to understand what they're talking about. I read a report yesterday, to every dollar that MyPillow and Lindell spends at CNN and MSNBC, he spends 10 at Fox News. Mm-hmm. Now we know why. In the big finish, Trump ends his presidency. Guys, did y'all know it's over, by the way? He's ended his presidency by blasting YMCA as he boards Air Force One, and then Twitter takes off. Watch this.
Have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm speechless. It's like ay. So between desecrating YMCA and Gloria, I'm like, no. Like, just put an end to it. This is good music. Stop ruining it.
Well, and what reality does he live in? Like, first of all, that song's not necessarily appropriate for a summer occasion, but also, like, it make what? What the YMCA? He might as well have played like Cotton Eye Joe.
Well, first off, you know the rumors that continue and continue that it's not about having sex at the YMCA among gay men. President Trump, it's not about having sex at the YMCA, wink, wink. It was interesting because I watched that live, of course, as everyone in America did, and I was watching it at MSNBC, and the anchor that was there at Andrews said, you know, this music is very inappropriate for his
It makes no sense in that situation at all.
What a perfect way to end him getting an Air Force One to YMCA.
I mean, I guess if I had 4 years of no sex, I might be a little crazy.
With oddities, right? There's just all these oddities. The tone was off. Everything was off. His orange tan was off. Yes. Everything was off. Just
wait. Did you just say the last 4 years were off? That's what you just said. All right.
Exactly.
In the big finish, and I promise I'm going to try really hard to ensure that this is the last story we ever do on this subject. Joe Exotic claimed yesterday he was too gay to get a pardon from Donald Trump.
I feel bad for the guy because he, you know, drugs are bad and gay. I do think we should get his husband on the show though, because Dylan Passage is attractive, and I think that'd be a fun episode.
So what is the name of the woman in Joe Exotic? I forget her name. Like,
that bitch, Carol Baskin.
There it is.
She's my neighbor in Sarasota.
Oh, that is hilarious. I mean, you know, let's talk about the pardons a little bit. And, you know, I kept waiting the night before for who's going to be on the list of pardons. And in my head, I said, you know, if Joe gets a pardon, I'm fine. There were other people that I was like, no way, Jose. But poor Joe.
I mean, Joe's entertaining, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
He's not that entertaining. You know, I'm just shocked. This week, Netflix revealed the most popular shows in 2020 on Netflix. His show was number 3.
I mean, people love to watch a disaster. Look how viewed the footage of the Hiroshima disaster.
And it was the beginning of the pandemic, and everybody was locked down.
Please, we've got to stop. That is the last story on him.
Well, that's today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share the news. We're the only television live video news that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of anchors David Hopkins and Orlando Gonzalez, we'll see you daily at 7 p.m. What an amazing week, LGBTQ community.
Absolutely.
Thank God it's finally
America.
2021.
Yeah. Good night, America.
Good night.